Welcome to our guest lecture this week on colonial exhibitions and Sufi Melas. Our speaker is Professor Hussain Ahmad, who is a professor at Government College, University, Lahore. Professor Hussain Ahmad Khan has written a book called Artisans, Sufis and Shrines, Colonial Architecture in 19th Century Punjab. We're very lucky to have him talk about his research here to us today. His research has been well received, and it really challenges the idea and the notion that the colonial state was all powerful and that it really limited the involvement of local people, indigenous people in India in these structures and institutions of culture, state and society. Now, to give you a little bit of background to Professor Ahmad's lecture today, I would like to talk you through a few definitions. Sufis, the participants and the creators of cultural space in South Asia that Professor Ahmad talks about, Sufis are Muslim mystics who access God's divine grace, which he calls barakah, and they communicate this to people through meditations and recitations of special powerful words and prayer and reflection. Shrines were built at the sites of graves of Sufi saints across South Asia, some dating back to the 13th and 14th centuries. These shrines were continually managed by living Sufi disciples of the originating saints and remain this way to the present day, keeping the culture of mystical practice alive at shrines. Each year there is a commemoration of each saint at each shrine. Better-known saints drew many thousands of devotees to celebrations every year and continue to do so till today. Shrine complexes grew up over time and became anchors for settlement and commercial growth. Towns grew up around Sufi shrines in South Asia, and as you might expect, the economies of these towns relied on the regular influx of visitors to Sufi shrines. Melas, the place of cultural production and exchange that Professor Hussain Ahmad discusses today, are fairs. Melas are fairs that take place in and around the Sufi shrine, part of the commemoration events for founding saints. Professor Hussain asks us to compare these melas to colonial exhibitions that were collections and exhibits of Indian material objects that could be traded and exported by merchants to Europe and North America. He asks us to think about artisans who are craftsmen who produce dishes, fine cloths, embroideries, talismans, jewelry, medicines, and all sorts of other objects of material use. He asks us to think about positivist knowledge that is based on scientific, artistic, and economic theory and material analysis of objects that grounded the colonial identification and examination of objects for trade. And finally, he asks us to compare that positivist knowledge to the worldview of the Sufis who oriented the melas.
I will discuss colonial exhibitions and Sufi Mela or festivals in this lecture. Colonial exhibitions and Sufi Mela were two different cultural institutions which promoted opposing ideologies of the British and the Sufis respectively. In 19th century India, Sufis and the British advocated different ideologies. The Sufis' ideology was centered on the establishment of an Islamic state and the revival of Islamic culture. The British ideology was to realize a liberal empire based on the positivist knowledge, which means the British viewed Indian religions and metaphysical ideas as imperfect modes of knowledge. The colonial officials considered science the only legitimate mode of knowledge. Both Sufis and colonial officials viewed local craft practices as a means to propagate their respective ideologies. Due to their historically developed relationship with Indian artisans, the Sufis were effectively able to engage artisans in disseminating mystic ideas through mela or festivals at shrines. While colonial exhibitions struggled to attract artisans, and because of this failure, British administrators could not localize new approaches to art based on ideas largely borrowed from Europe. In the 19th century, several Sufis regarded themselves as imam or leaders of Muslims who could succeed the Mughals. They fought against the Sikhs and the British to establish an Islamic state in North India. Sufis also supported the local Muslim rulers in their wars against the British. The Sufis resisted colonial trade, criticized the activities of Christian missionaries. They opposed positivist knowledge and stressed the importance of the Quran, prophetic traditions, and Arabic and Persian Sufi texts. Those Sufis who did not participate in political alliances and militant activities promoted the revival of Islamic practices in all aspects of life. The British too presented themselves as alternate leaders to the Mughals. Sometimes they supported the Christian missionaries, but in most cases they advocated utilitarian ideas and wanted to establish a liberal empire in India. They strived to integrate the local artisans in the global economy to achieve their economic interest. The British argued that the learning of Western knowledge, especially science, was a way to remove the superstitions rooted in the local religions and traditions. We will discuss how 19th century Sufi communities used mela and colonial officials used exhibitions for promoting their respective interests. In the 1850s and the 60s, the British exports remarkably increased. During this period, the British state reduced tariffs and reformed art instruction at home to explore the potential for expanding its trade. We also see several exhibitions held during this period to facilitate traders and to explore new markets. The colonial government in India also organized exhibitions for boosting trade. In 1864, the first Punjab exhibition was held in Lahore. In the same year, the first Bengal agricultural exhibition was organized in Calcutta. And then in 1864, the exhibition of works of art and industry of the northwest provinces was arranged at Agra. The objectives of these exhibitions were related to trade. The organizers compiled catalogues which explained the raw material and crafts of the region, the potential export items, the yearly estimated volume of trade between different regions, and yearly estimated imports of the European goods in India. The idea was to promote free trade and incorporate the local artisans in the global economy. Through these exhibitions, the British organizers also wanted to preserve indigenous styles in different crafts. Since the Oriental patterns were very popular in Europe, the exhibition organizers wanted to encourage Indian artisans to make such designs preserving the local traditions. For them, the economic well-being of artisans and the promotion of crafts were only possible with education which the Europeans could impart. The organizers assumed a responsibility for educating the artisans through exhibitions. When local visitors would study their own traditions, they would understand the evolution of their crafts. Europeans would guide them to avoid imitation and exaggeration of colors, and as how to produce good designs by keeping prices low. Here we see a convergence of interest. The moral position of organizers for preserving local tradition also aimed to protect the economic interest of British middle class. In 19th century India, we see an uncomfortable relationship between the British and the locals. The British wanted to establish the writ of the state by eliminating the rebellious elements and devise and execute policies to increase revenue. For this, they remained impersonal in their interaction with the local population. The organizers of exhibitions relied on this impersonal, bureaucratic structure. It was a three-tiered structure comprising central committee at the top, district committees in cities, and the town and village committees. These committees comprised the revenue officers who had little knowledge of local crafts, but they were expected to exercise care and taste for selecting exhibits. Since these officers had a difficult relationship with the local artisans due to their responsibility for assessing and collecting taxes, it became impossible for them to convince artisans to participate in the exhibition. Because of this reason, the organizers of various exhibitions questioned the performance of the committees. These committees sent exhibits very late. Sometimes they collected exhibits the curators did not want. Many times they did not collect the speciality of a place. The main objective of the exhibitions was to display the exact state of Indian craftsmanship and original Oriental designs which could be used for exports to Europe. But these objectives could not be achieved due to the colonial bureaucratic structure. The sites of colonial exhibitions were spaces where the curators aimed to control the movement and the ideas of visitors. Participants were forced to consider or take part in already defined categories. These exhibitions showed imperial authority but at the same time led to the resentment among the visitors who disliked the British. Disorderly, the apparently ordered sites of exhibitions limiting the influence of colonial state. Such disorder could be seen in the construction of exhibition buildings and the arrangement of objects at the stalls. In 1864, first Punjab exhibition was organized in Lahore. A district engineer in the Punjab Railways designed and supervised the construction of exhibition building. The building was designed in English Belgian Gothic style. It was a hastily constructed structure as the engineer had only 6 months for completing the project. The original plan was to dismantle the building soon after the exhibition, but due to lack of funds, it was used as the museum. Similarly, in 1881-82, a temporary structure was constructed for the second Punjab exhibition in Lahore. It was demolished soon after the exhibition. The exhibition buildings were underfunded architectural projects largely undertaken by military engineers who were trained for constructing temporary structures. These were not attractive buildings at all, so the curators had no intention of using architecture as an ideological statement to represent a liberal empire. However, the sites of Sufi Mela were ideological in a sense that these were pre-colonial buildings constructed by kings who were considered representing the Muslim civilization in India. In a limited space, the organizers of exhibitions displayed too many objects. It distracted the viewers. It also confused the organizers about the scope and classification of the exhibits. The display at various stalls looked like a warehouse or a shop overcrowded with articles. For instance, in 1864 First Punjab exhibition, the organizers displayed more than 11,000 articles and they could not place exhibits in relevant categories. Similarly, in the Calcutta International Exhibition, too many articles were displayed in a limited space. One of the organizers commented that the stall looked like a steward's pantry on shipboard. So the arrangements of the exhibits were not neatly classified, which could engage or influence the visitors. In colonial exhibitions, organizers struggled to grasp a different world around them. Exhibitions were a site of contestation where the organizers with diverse background and experiences had divergent opinions about the local craftsmanship. They appreciated, criticized, and disputed over best specimens. The colonial administrators believed that Indian painters were not knowledgeable enough to paint, while acknowledging that the Europeans could not judge the local paintings conceptually. At the mechanical level, the organizers found problems in drawing, color, and overall scheme. The skills of local painters were reported to be inferior and of low order. For the British, local painters needed to acquire the knowledge of mathematics, geometry, physical laws, and biology to draw accurately. While judging textile products, paintings, and machines, the organizers expressed surprise and showed curiosity and interest. It suggests a continuous struggle of the organizers to understand the local culture. This point is important. The agents of an empire who claimed to have superior knowledge system admitted their limitations of knowledge. These expressions of surprise, curiosity, and interest draw a line between the the local cultural domains, defining a space where the colonial state was not able to pursue its interests. The space of exhibition was designed by the British, but it turned out to be an unknown territory for them. This discussion also leads us to a larger conclusion, and that is, the political control does not always mean a control over culture. A Sufi's blessing powers are called baraka. We should understand baraka in a wider sense, encompassing individual and collective interests, which involve the legitimacy of kings, cure from diseases, material prosperity and self-realization or happiness. This aspect of baraka, which is both mystical and materialistic, is invoked by Sufis through various rituals or manners. In Sufism, manners are acts performed to show respect and acknowledge the sanctity of Sufi masters. Such manners involve touching the feet of a Sufi, behaving in a certain way in the presence of a Sufi master, collecting dust from a Sufi's feet, and giving gifts to Sufis, wearing certain type of dress, taking simple food, and observing etiquette while listening to music. In South Asia, shrine is considered a worldly embodiment of a Sufi controlling various functions of the universe. So, a shrine is not strictly a heritage of past, but a source of baraka. Shrine is a center for disseminating religious knowledge and is a spiritual space. In India, shrine is also called darbar, which means court, because it is comparable with a king of temporal world. Like a king's court, shrine has a hierarchy of successors and followers. A king has a power to meet the material needs of his rule. In the same way, a Sufi would also satisfy materialistic and mystic needs of his followers through spiritual powers. Like in a king's court, one has to follow particular manners in Sufi shrines. King controls the temporal world, and a Sufi controls the spiritual world. So in this sense, Sufi is more powerful than a king. In colonial India, people celebrated death anniversaries of Sufis at almost every shrine. The event attracted people across the regions and religions. Such events were called Mela or festive activities, or Urs, which means marriage. In Sufi tradition, death of a Sufi is a spiritual marriage of Sufi with God. Since Sufis are friends of God, so they never die. In Sufi Mela, visitors offered prayers and discussed the life and miracles of Sufi. Snake charmers, tightrope walkers, mainly girls, and performances by various trained animals, especially monkeys, were a source of entertainment. Pilgrims recited folk tales and discussed mysticism. People dressed in new clothes amused themselves with activities such as singing, dancing, wrestling, and horse racing. On these occasions, the colonial administrators resolved local disputes which could be easily addressed at shrines, than in the law courts. It shows how important these places were. The British did not like activities at Mela. A professor of science living in Lahore found dancing and performances of trained animals unpleasant and painful. In North India, the British visitors considered Sufi Mela uncivilized because the entertainment involved mundane activities and inhuman treatment of animals and human beings. At many shrines, more than 5 or 6 Mela, each spanning from 1 to 3 days, were organized each year. Local artisans preferred to participate in Mela and avoided colonial exhibitions. Artisans practicing pottery, basket work, cotton weaving, embroidery and metalwork had their stalls on the occasions. They had a profitable selling as thousands of visitors from all over the subcontinent and neighboring regions of Afghanistan and Central Asia attended these festivals. The colonial officials also marketed the British textile products. During Sufi Mela, most of the shopkeepers and artisans closed their shops and set up their stalls at the site. Weavers weaved special clothes, normally of silk or cotton, in red and green colors. Considering the occasion, the painters used floral patterns and images of Sufis for decorating horse carts and walls. Potters set up their stalls selling utensils especially decorated with religious inscriptions. We find less expensive jewelry items. Similarly, the carpet weavers displayed prayer carpets, wall hangings with inscriptions and images of Sufis, shrines and mosques. The Sufi Mela were a local version of exhibition operated differently from the colonial exhibitions. The objectives of the colonial exhibitions were to educate artisans about the rational principles of art and to promote free trade. However, the Sufi Mela attracted the artisans for invoking baraka or spiritual powers, which reinforced the Sufis' metaphysical tradition. Making, selling and purchasing the specially designed products were all motivated by a belief in baraka, which protected the economic interest of the artisans, cured their ailments, and brought them closer to the Sufi masters. Unlike the exhibitions, the custodians of shrines were not involved in the selection and classification of exhibits. Artisans enjoyed complete autonomy in displaying their products. They knew what was marketable and reasonably priced. They did not display highly decorative and expensive works that common people could not afford. However, in the exhibitions, highly decorative and expensive items were displayed, despite the intention of the organizers to showcase cheap articles. Unlike the exhibitions to which only few artisans from each district sent their exhibits, in Sufi Mela, each artisan family of a village or district could set up their own stall, which provided them more opportunity to make profits and show their skills. The local artisans believed that the involvement of the revenue officers in collecting the exhibits was a serving technique to explore the possibility of imposing more taxes on them. So they were reluctant to contribute artifacts to the exhibitions. The organizers demanded the artisans to submit their tools and techniques of making an article. The artisans suspected that such demand was a means of disclosing their business secrets to the European traders and manufacturers. There was no such compulsion in Sufi Mela. So in 19th century India, Sufi Mela were more influential in engaging local population than colonial exhibitions. The political rulers could not control local cultural institutions in that period.